Well, Elon Musk willing to close his deal with Twitter, tweeting today that they can move forward with a $44 billion takeover if, and only if, the social media company can accurately confirm the number of real users on the platform. Twitter has continued saying his allegations about phony users are bogus. Former federal prosecutor Katie Cherkasky on where the fight goes from here. Good to see you, Katie. Thanks for being here. So if Musk can prove that the SEC filings of Twitter were false or manipulated somehow, can he walk away from the deal?
Well, I think absolutely. I think Elon Musk makes a very reasonable point that he needs to know the literal value of the inventory that he is acquiring here. Twitter has responded saying that they've given him all the information that exists, but I still don't know that it gets to the final bottom line of how many spam and bot accounts are on there, which I think the court will find to be a reasonable argument.
But is the onus on them to prove that their filings are real or on him to prove that they're false?
Well, it's really on Elon Musk at this point, I think, under the terms of the agreement to show that the Twitter has materially deviated from the terms. But when he's acquiring a company, I think the bottom line here is that he does need to be able to value the company itself. And these bot accounts are really directly connected to any sort of monetizable use of Twitter. So in terms of proving that Twitter didn't disclose the proper information, I think the onus still falls on Elon Musk for that. But Twitter really has to respond with convincing evidence that they have done so.
Just to be clear for our viewers, the reason that this is so important to Elon Musk is all about money, because you make your money from advertisers based on how many real people are using the product. And if, in fact, they've been overstating, he says as much as 45%, overstating the amount of real people that they have, instead of these bots, these electronically conceived things that happen that aren't connected to people, then the value of the company goes down dramatically, right?
Well, absolutely. That's exactly the bottom line here. Now, Twitter, in their response, tries to say that Elon Musk didn't specifically ask for some of this information and tries to kind of skirt around the issue, in my opinion. But really, this information about the bots and the spam accounts is really the only thing that matters, because that's the only way to directly value the assets and inventory of this company, which any court is going to want to see if they're going to require someone to purchase another company. So I think that Elon Musk does make a good point. If Twitter has not disclosed any sort of reliable method to value this company, then I'm not sure how a court can force him to move forward with that deal.
Now, if he does take over, we know that he's going to dramatically change the character of the company. A lot of employees have already expressed their dislike for him, for what he plans to do, getting rid of some of that editorial control that they now have over what goes over Twitter. So he's not going to get much help from people inside the company to prove his point, will he?
Well, I wouldn't expect that at all. But obviously, the board did decide to move forward with this deal. They knew that Elon Musk's plan was to drastically change the nature of the platform. And so I don't know that that's necessarily what will underlie the court battle at this point. But certainly, if Elon Musk is not just using this information as a ploy to get out of a deal or get a lower price, I think it's a legitimate argument to make. How do you value this company if Twitter cannot give a reliable method for how they're getting to these numbers?
Katie, final point. Elon is a very eccentric kind of guy, and the SEC, the regulators in the government, don't like eccentrics because they don't always follow every tick. They don't always cross every T, dot every I. Is that going to be a problem for Elon in trying to make his case to regulators?
Well, Elon's made allegations that Twitter has actually filed fraudulent claims or filings with the SEC himself. So certainly, I think that if he doesn't make any or put forth any evidence to show that that's legitimate, that could raise some eyebrows with the SEC if he does in fact come to own the company. But at this point, I would see what happens with the court battle before we see what happens when he owns the company itself.
By the way, important final point that I'll make is that the market seems to be betting with Elon, because the stock price was all the way down to 31, has come back up to 42, indicating that they may be reaching higher numbers as we get closer to Elon taking over the company. I just put that out there because markets are important here. Hey, Katie, thank you so much. It's a fascinating case study. Appreciate it.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.